What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Anika as a character. I love doing these character breakdowns. Last year for Scream 5, I believe I made an individual video and we broke down all of the characters in that film. I've done a few so far. We've talked about Sam specifically, even Sydney not being in the movie, but I wanted to give Anika one of the primary spots. I want to talk about her, honestly, rather early on in this series because she's so good. She's one of my favorites. I ranked all the characters. I think she's in the top 5. I think maybe she is number 5. I'd have to go look at the list, but she's incredible. And so I wanted to give her an entire video of talking about her scenes, kind of what she meant to the movie. And I mean it. I really do believe she means a lot to this movie and to the franchise. And now we've talked about this on and off in different live streams. I think going forward, she's somebody that you think about for a couple of reasons, and maybe primarily the ladder sequence is the main reason. Now, I want to say there's more to her character than just her death, right? But truly, I mean, without BSing, like, that is a main part of this film. It's one of the biggest scenes in this entire film, and I think its legacy of lasting beyond this film is pretty high and probably outlives other things in this film, right? So when we think of some of the best, which I do want to make these ranking videos as the months go on, the best kills, these kind of things, Anika has got to be up there. And that's great. I mean, that's something that you can rest your hat on and say, hey, I did that, or this character did that, and that's awesome. I believe she serves more value to this movie than just the death, though. So I want to kind of talk about all of it. So she does an incredible job with being given, again, not so much. The ironic thing, I think this maybe in a way almost hurts Scream 5. I look at a character like her, I would even maybe look at a character like Quinn and say, okay, how much are they in the movie? Well, I don't have, the time slots, how much actual time they're on screen, but Anika cannot be in this thing for very long, right? Maybe 6, 7, 8 minutes, and a lot of that time is the last... how many minutes is the actual ladder when they're in the room, when Ghostface is breaking down the door, when Anika is bleeding out on the bed, and then they get on the ladder, or she gets on the ladder, and then she dies. How much is that? Probably 2-3 minutes, and that's probably like half of her scenes, because up until that point, she's at the party, a couple different scenes there, and I do want to talk about that because that shows, and I think that's the beginning of saying, okay, you're immediately going to like this character. Because I feel like for a character that has such like a weighted death, something that's going to kind of like weigh down on you, and you do feel very, very sad for her. And I think that's kind of a universal thing. No matter what you think of the movie, I think, number one, a lot of us kind of wanted her to live in that sequence, but number two, a lot of us like felt really bad. And I'll talk about some of the reasons why. I think it was the writing, it was her, but that all starts in the beginning with the party. She's immediately established as just a likable character, right? And here's the reason, at least in my opinion, the reason I think she's so likable is she slots in immediately, and she doesn't kind of have any ulterior motives. Like, she seems very genuine and pure. And that's, I think, Devin doing it. I also think it's the writing and just her actions, right? You never really... Now, maybe it's because we knew she was going to get on the ladder. That was in the TV spots. That was in the trailers. Like, we knew... We had a good feeling, let's say, she was going to die. So there was never really a belief she could be Ghostface. But I would honestly say, from the beginning, when she's sticking up for Tara, right? She's talking about Tara, she's talking to Tara, and then she's the one to get Chad. See, I think that was actually a very important scene when she says, you're up, big guy, or whatever she said, and they walk. I think that's incredibly important because that immediately solidifies her as part of this family, right? So she's dating Mindy. She hasn't been dating her all that long, maybe 6 months. I mean, it's been a year since 5, so under a year. Let's just say under a year that they've been together. But there's already, you can tell, a care she has, not just for Mindy, but for the whole group. She clearly is a protector kind of role, in a way, at least a little bit, for Tara. Like, she cares. In the first couple scenes, I believe the second scene maybe, you see of her character, that's what happens. She's got a little bit of spunk, right, where she says, like, I'm extraordinarily uninterested, or whatever that line is. Like, that's a great little line, and it kind of shows a little bit of spunk she has that you'll continue to see, right, when she blows Mindy a kiss on the chair at the college. That's another one. Even when she's bleeding out on the bed, and she says, like, say something more positive, like, she still has that more, like, energetic, like, a little bit of a comedy. She's not like comedic relief by any means, but she's got that element to it. So, you don't see her all that much until that apartment thing. But again, immediately and very quickly, and in just a few scenes, they establish her as part of the group. She's got a couple other cool scenes. Again, the spunk angle being when Ethan talks about why did everybody look when the phone goes off and she, keep up my dude. That was one of them. Also, when they're going through, who could be suspects, at the college grounds, and, she's like, well, obviously it can't be me. She doesn't say that, but again, us as the audience kind of knows. It feels like they kind of know as well. And then Mindy says, don't trust the love interest. And she gives kind of a dark little look where it's like, all right, I mean, you're making it seem like it's possible it's her. But again, we've seen the teasers, we've seen the trailers. We know it's going to happen. And then again, I think the death, obviously, to not shy away from it, is such a big sequence. You feel bad for her. I think it's also because it's just very violent. Like, she gets stabbed, she gets ripped open at least a little bit. It's a prolonged kind of thing where she's sitting on the bed and her and Mindy are both not doing great. And then you have the ladder. And I mentioned, okay, why is it so impactful that she died? Well, again, I think you kind of feel like she's part of that group. If you were to extend the 4-person family to one more, just one more, it would be her. It wouldn't be Quinn. Quinn does a very good job in her limited scenes when she's just Quinn and not like a psycho at the end, but she doesn't feel, at least to me, she doesn't feel connected. And maybe it's because she's not dating one of them. I don't know. Does that make them more, feel like they're part of the group? Anika does. I don't know if that's the reason or just because she feels like, or we feel like, she kind of has their back. So that is a big reason. But one of the most underrated, and we've talked about this in live streams, is her saying, I don't want to die. When she's on the ladder, then she has a couple scenes before that, right? When she's trying to get onto the ladder and she says, I can't. You just feel bad for her, right? She seems like just a sweet girl, young girl. It's like, obviously you don't want someone like that to die. And then when she says, I don't want to die, it's such a small thing. And you imagine probably a lot of people would say it in like, not to make it too real, right? To people, because it is just a movie, yet again, if depending on if you're Richie or not, maybe it's more. But that is something that I think a lot of people would say in those situations. And I think there's just kind of a connection that you would form when somebody says that, right? Like you hear that and you're like, don't worry. Like, I don't want you to die either. You know what I mean? We're going to do our best here. But also, Ghostface is right behind you and we need to kind of hurry it up. And then also just the ladder sequence in itself, right? The idea of not using a knife, falling from a high place, slamming it, twisting it. The tension that she really is like, right there. Like Sam has her hand at a point. They do grab just a tiny bit and then they kind of slip off. So she's so close and then obviously it happens. And even the kill itself, they talk about the most gory or brutal Ghostface. The face that Anika has after she lands, let's say, very similar, I would say, to Amber's. Obviously a different situation of how she got it. You just feel bad. And I guess you could even argue Sam sells it kind of well because the scene right after, Sam's smoking, in the alleyway or at the end of the alleyway. And that's the line where Danny goes up to her and talks about how, like, this isn't your fault. And she says, but it is. And that's really where you start. I think that really helps Sam's character. You already have a lot of Sam's character before that I think Melissa does well. But even right there, it's like, she's putting these people maybe inadvertently, but she's putting these people in these situations and they're dying, and people that we really care about are dying. And I would say, honestly, the sequence is also sold from the rest of them too. I think Anika as, Devin as Anika does an incredible job, but it is very tense. And why is it tense? Well, the music, the atmosphere, it being on a high place, but also the three of them, right? Danny, Mindy, and Sam just screaming. And Danny, Josh Segura, he's talked about it where they just gave it their all for like 5 nights in a row. I believe it because it's just screaming and all this just energy of like, come on, let's go over there. I mean, I imagine that did take a while, and that I imagine it was also emotionally draining, right? Because you're just giving it your all nonstop. That's the entirety of the scene, is motivating this person, to kind of cross, but also like you gotta hurry, and then like the sadness when she falls. So it wasn't just her. I mean, that scene I think was kind of lifted from, it's something very different. Like, we've never really seen it before in Scream. It's a mix of like a stabbing, because she does get stabbed first. Oh, and also, I kind of just glanced over it. Why does she get stabbed? Well, maybe she would have got stabbed anyway, but she was protecting Mindy, right? Now, I don't know if you needed to do what you did. So Mindy gets sliced down the arm, and then she decides to like grab Ghostface's arm and the foot. And it's like, well, how'd you think that was going to play out, right? At first, she gets choked, and it's like, this is weird. This is an odd way of killing somebody. But then when she lifts her up, okay, I kind of see where you're going for now. So even that, I mean, that's it's small, but it's also the lead up right before, her stabbing and then her dying, so maybe it's kind of glanced over. But even in that moment, she's looking out. At least Chad and Tara just kind of booked it, right? At least she kind of fought, she kind of gave it up. But I think that helps her spunk, right? That helps her ability of she's a charming character, she's a likable character, she's somebody that feels obviously connected to Mindy, but she's also connected to the group. I think that's a really big part of it, and you just don't want to see someone like that die. Maybe one of the most sad thing is they're so afraid, seemingly, to kill so many characters in this film. So many people make it. Obviously, you want her to make it, but it's like, well, some people literally have to die. She's extra, right? She's this like added on cast. Like, she kind of has to go. So, people that say, well, I wanted Anika to live, or Anika shouldn't have died. I get it, but I mean, you already had so many survivors there. You had to have taken some of these people out. But again, I mean, looking back at this years down the line, or even Scream 7, or whatever, whenever it may be, I really think she holds up. I think she holds up as one of the better, truly, one of the better supporting characters. She's these characters that are not in the movie all that much. They have maybe 5 to 10 minutes, which each movie has that, right? It's not exclusive to 5 and 6. Each movie has characters that don't make it that long, right? They get killed off early or whatever. And some of them are pretty darn good, and maybe some of them aren't. But Anika, I think, is up there. And I think her death obviously will carry a lot of weight going forward when you look back and say, what are some of the best death scenes in this franchise? I think I'll make a video myself ranking them, but I think she's got to be high. Like, I don't know how high. I think there's maybe 30 plus deaths in these Scream movies, maybe more. She's got to be in the top 10, maybe even top 5, to be honest with you. You go through the list. The death, it's long, it's got tension, it's got multiple parts. She's very likable. She sells it very well. She deserves a high ranking, or she deserves those kind of accolades. So great job to Devin Nakota. Great job to Anika as a character. They absolutely nailed that in this movie. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're all subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.